other than just the airships tracking him, but we do know that he has been driving pretty erratically, driving at some point in the wrong lanes of traffic here and nearly hitting pedestrians about a mile ago. So here we are tracking the stolen vehicle suspect as he makes his way through the Lincoln Heights area.
All right, and you just saw one of those LAPD ships that Mark's talking about in our shot. So what we want to let you know about what we understand about this suspect is apparently it is a male driver. All we know is that he's wearing a gray shirt, maybe the only person in this vehicle at the time. So Mark's been talking about how they're tracking the vehicle. You can't even see any of those LAPD units behind this vehicle right now. They're, of course, using the help of the LAPD ships that are up ahead. To me, if this actually started in the Hollenbeck division, and as I mentioned, that would mean Boyle Heights, Lincoln Heights, the Highland Park area, basically East LA, it appears to me that this driver may be going back to where this pursuit began, or maybe even where he started and where he actually stole the vehicle. So we know that that happens sometimes with these drivers. They tend to go back to the area where it originated, an area that they may be more familiar with, and that way they can try to get away from the cops. And one scary thing is, of course, is he's on the streets. He was on the freeway for a little bit, on the 10 right around Cesar Chavez in East LA, but now that he's on the streets, as Mark's been mentioning, he's driving erratically and blowing through these intersections with a complete disregard for those intersections and for all the people who are on the streets here. We're trying to get some information about what streets that he's on right now, but we do know it is around the Boyle Heights area, and as I mentioned earlier, we caught up with him. He was on North Main Street right around Broadway, which is a major intersection in the Boyle Heights area. Also, he was on Arcadia at Los Angeles Street. Los Angeles Street, also a very big street. So, of course, if your plans take you around this part of town, and this appears to possibly be maybe part of the 10 freeway, right around the 5, and it looks like he may be trying to come back around again. So, again, we'll get some streets and give you some more information. But, again, this is a stolen vehicle suspect. Hollenbeck Division of the LAPD is in pursuit of this male driver who's just wearing a gray shirt, and that's all we know.
Hey, Frank, yeah, that's right. The Hollenbeck units were actually pursuing him for a short while. They backed off, but I can now tell you that there are at least four vehicles that are in fact pursuing this guy, and a couple of units on parallel streets also tracking this guy. So they are in pursuit here. We understand this is Huntington. He's moving eastbound past the Lincoln Heights area, and he is moving at a pretty high rate of speed here, still being tracked by these LAPD units and by the helicopters.
It's always nerve-wracking for us to watch. For example, right here, an intersection where people are just kind of minding their business going through the intersection. Ginger, I mean, this guy's been making some pretty questionable moves all morning.
Yeah, you saw that earlier where he just went in between two cars, and it looked like he clipped one of those cars that he went in between, and then he, of course, hit his mirror. And now we saw that he was on Huntington. Looks like he's turning maybe north. We'll get some of those streets from Mark in a little bit. Yeah, complete disregard for all those other drivers. And as you mentioned, look at this pedestrian crossing.
Sure.
So that means pedestrian crossing where they don't actually have a crosswalk or a light setup. That can be very dangerous. And people are just walking around, and they're not expecting to see something like this. And look at this driver.
He's on the
wrong side. And actually, he's been doing that for a while. And
Here's
now look what he's coming up against. So very dangerous. He's going to make this right turn here. And then we also saw some school buses in the neighborhood too, so he has to contend with that. Spike strip is probably not going to be a situation that they're going to be able to do today or right now in this case, because they're not able to determine exactly what direction he'll be headed in. That could be very dangerous. Now he's turning, so that was Huntington. So again, not too far from South Pasadena, right there where South Pass, El Sereno, and Alhambra kind of all come together. This is the location that we're talking about. So he's kind of got some open roads. He was on Huntington for a while, which is good for him. However, it's going to be tough for the LAPD to decide where he's going to go, and hopefully they can still, however, maybe use a pit maneuver situation if they deem it to be safe. There's Fremont Avenue, so depending on what direction he is, he could end up in South Pass, or he can, I think he came from that Boyle Heights area. Southbound Fremont, coming up from the Huntington area. So it looks to us like he's actually leaving that El Sereno, Alhambra, South Pasadena area, which is actually a big intersection, a lot of major streets that he can take, and then it'll take him anywhere. Look at that. He just completely blew through that stop sign.
There's a lot of congestion, you know, at this time of day. A lot of people use that area to cut through to get
instead of taking the freeway.
Exactly.
Sure, they use
for people trying to avoid the freeway, they hop on that, and you can really get yourself in a little bit of surface street gridlock through there, although he's not running into that right now.
There he goes again, blowing through the stop sign.
You're saying he's on South Fremont. If that's the case, I guess he could theoretically continue all the way to the 10 freeway there,
He
right?
can continue all the way to, depending on which direction he's headed, he could go up into South Pass and then pick up the 110 freeway, yes. He could come through the Alhambra area and pick up the 710 freeway, which would probably be the closest for him.
He's just using
and then that would take him through
lane.
East LA and bring him back. So he's actually really not that far from his original location, from where the Hollenbeck division picked him up, which he's only about, I would say, maybe 7 miles away from that spot, even though, like I said, he was on the border of that.
And again,
South Pass,
have we seen a handoff to South Pasadena police? Oh goodness me, he almost lost control of a
Yeah,
vehicle.
Mark. One thing I did notice, it does appear to me like maybe he's lost, as we kind of had mentioned before, and because as you were talking to the sergeant there earlier, I noticed that he was in San Marino for a little bit, and then he was on Las Tunas for a while, and he left that Las Tunas area and moved out of that area into San Gabriel, and then he went back to San Marino, and now it looks like he's heading through San Marino. It looks to us like, okay, so this is Atlantic Avenue, Atlantic Boulevard, and maybe he's lost and trying to get back to an area where he is a little bit more familiar. Those green signs indicate to me that he may be in Alhambra and maybe trying to get back to that Boyle Heights area of a familiar spot and maybe trying to come back north towards San Marino to do that. But it really looks like he's lost to me. I really can see that. Mark, what else can you tell us about the location that he's at?
Yeah, Ginger, you know, you're certainly right there. He may be kind of staying in an area that he's familiar with, San Marino, San Gabriel, the Boyle Heights area. It appears that he's back in Alhambra here, again, westbound on Alhambra, and there he is in the middle lane there, coming up to an intersection, a stop sign in just the next few feet here. There he goes, blows right through it. And again, westbound on Alhambra here, we have heard that he has been driving pretty erratically. Before we got here, we did know that he was driving on the wrong side of the road in places, coming very close to pedestrians at times as well. So again, another few hundred yards, another stop sign here. Let's see what he does. He's got cross traffic ahead at a stop sign, and they are entering the intersection. Oh my gosh, no. Okay, here we go. Just passes behind, a narrow miss there, but again, westbound on Alhambra, through Alhambra now, and he is just unrestricted, heading straight to the west.
Well, and it's interesting what we heard Sergeant Marceau from the from LAPD talk about is that their officers are trained to be patient. That's the one thing, the advantage they have. Okay, it looks
now
as
he's
though
going up the sidewalk.
He's
okay. Mark, why don't you tell us what it is that you see and what is this part that he's trying to get to?
He's just decided to make his own U-turn.
Yeah, you know what? He was westbound on Huntington. He just jumped the curb and turned northbound through the park here. Now he's back eastbound and now northbound into the neighborhood here. So some very erratic moves by this driver here as he moves into the neighborhood here. But yeah, he is being pursued by several vehicles of the LAPD, at least 10 to 12 from what I can count here. They are laying back just a little bit, maybe 10 car lengths, but they are in pursuit and they are actively trying to get this guy to stop.
Okay, so we're south of South Pasadena and then on the western edge of Alhambra, and basically this is still LA. I'd call it El Sereno, so anybody familiar with this area knows, as exactly Mark mentioned, we have these narrow streets as you're heading up north. Through the El Sereno area, and that's what he may have to contend with, but also what the LAPD officers are. And we noticed earlier that at least this unit behind the vehicle was pretty far back, but this is a dead-end street, and so where this guy's going to go, who knows? Maybe a situation where he jumps out. Look at this. Now he's coming up to this dead-end street, but this is someone's house here. He's going up their driveway. He doesn't know where he's going. Okay, so he... Okay, so this is a real
concern here.
Well, and yeah, definitely, and hopefully he's going to come out and the LAPD officers will be able to take him down, and this will be a quiet ending to this stolen vehicle suspect.
And hopefully this will be a situation where the people are either not home or smart enough to stay in the house.
Hey, Ginger, I was just talking to the police, one of the police helicopters who's just departed the scene, so we're actually going to drop down just a couple of hundred feet and yet still give them plenty of room here. But it looks like the police are making their approach to the car here. This person has not been responsive here or you know, heeding the warnings of the officers here. So here they are. You're seeing it firsthand as the officers officers approach the rear of the vehicle here, they are trying to call him out. At the same time, they are also trying to keep the residents of the home, you know, inside. It appears that they are, or they may be home. So, you know, all of this going out right in their driveway here. So we'll see what happens over the next few moments here as the police try and call this suspect out.
And it does not look like he is coming out. He is not budging. As Michaela mentioned, you can kind of see now as we get a little closer in here and as Mark has dropped down a little bit that the driver's side window is blown out, and it also looks like this back window is also the passenger's window on the driver's side has also been blown out here, so that maybe this is taking place so they can better communicate with him because, oh, and there they go, breaking into the other side of the window. Okay, they're going to get this guy out whether he wants to or not.
That right rear window.
They're obviously not concerned that he's armed because they would not be approaching that without, you know, they have some cover, but not really. They're, you know, their weapons aren't drawn. I wonder if they're concerned that he has injured himself or he's just decided to.
He's moving too much.
But he may just be trying to be resistant.
They're reaching into the car for him.
And they're going to get him. They're going to get this guy. And look at all of these LAPD officers from the Hollywood
Division. Yeah, they're just dragging him out. They're just dragging him out by force here.
All right, well, it looks like they were able to get him out, and I'm wondering too, Mark, whether or not you see there's an ambulance on standby in case. And look, we already have a photographer here, so somebody's already gotten to the scene quickly. None of the residents of the home have come out, so that's some good news. But I was wondering if there's an ambulance maybe on standby.
And just chased the photographer away. It looked as though he was resisting. It wasn't as though he was fighting against him, but just sort of resistant.
They had to drag him out of that vehicle, but as you mentioned too, Michaela, good news is it doesn't appear that they were concerned about him having any weapons of any sort, so that's some good news. And of course, all of the officers here doing the job that they're meant to do here to get him out, and then of course to bring this to a safe conclusion, and hopefully the residents in that home will stay home.
And the people in that home, a bit more excitement than they were bargaining for this morning, but we're glad to say that this has resulted in a peaceful conclusion, that no officers were injured, and we can't tell, but from the looks of it, we don't know. We don't believe shots were fired. They did use a non-lethal weapon. It looks as though they used a beanbag to break through that window, and of course you saw them breaking the windows as well. But they've got him under arrest here, and they'll take him into